Hello, this is Gerald-Johan Vanoise. In this video I will explain something that I avoided for a long time, but I have to do this because there is an advert going around that explains how my book Sound in Form has also an idea of that the letters and the letter combinations are directed by 3 times 3 dimensions or 9 dimensions, and I could make that comprehensible what that means, these interactive 3 times 3 dimensions. So I have to make a video explaining that it is actually understandable how these interactions appear. And you see here a resume of what we need of focus, but I will explain it in detail, and there with that method you will also understand why the letters have certain positions, and also not just positions but also have positions in time and space, but also have meanings, have a very significant orientation in time and space that we need also in our orientations, and we follow these orientations. The reasons why we follow that's not in this video, but there is an order in our mind that gives things easily an order. And if we count, for instance, I always say like counting to 3 is easy. If you see in every way, I mean, if you have 3 variations, the variation of 3, you can keep your mind focused. So the number 3 is really a guiding reference to understand how to keep your mind focused. So even in the Chinese script here, you see here the first 3 numbers are just counting, and the 4th number is already something different. It's not just a square. It also describes very well how you have the working frame now from the 4th, or like the 4th dimension onwards. We have a working field, and there we see the differences. We can understand differences. We will show and we will follow the differences that appear in time. They appear in our working field. From 1, 2, 3, of course there are differences, but we can count, and we can count these 3 dimensions, can also count on each other. The 4th one is making much more differences. It behaves completely different, and that's why we also have to apply a different method, a different way of thinking. Just adding the 4th dimension into a system that is exactly the same as our system of 1, 2, 3 dimensions into one. I forget. I don't remember the English of this focus. Let's say it doesn't work to add a 4th arrow there. It doesn't work like that, and we have to have a different approach. And what is my approach? So there are, like I said, there are 3 dimensions guiding, and 3 dimensions diverting us, so they are bringing us away. So there are 3 times 3 dimensions that are interactive. If we try to have these 3 dimensions in just one space and plus the time aspect, it will not work. It already sends, okay, we are dealing here, what is it? Is this time linear? Can we have that as a linear thing, that it is you have a past, a present, and a future, that you have this wave or this linear wave, maybe that it works like that? It's not practical to overthink this even. Now, what will I do, and what will work for vowels and consonants, and to give this a meaning and to give this an order? We need 3 times 3 separate dimensions of the same order. They will interact. For the spatial references, the horizontal references, we have 3 different arrows on this cube, as you can see, and that's a reminder. Just I will tell you later how that works. We have also 3 different time references that we can see there on that square, the cube, sorry, on that cube, which is the cube of our spatial orientation. And we also have 3 intersections or intercommunicative regions, or the diagonals, that show you how these interactions between time and space work. So the 3 guiding dimensions that we need to as a reference to build up this method are all coming from one point, just like we always do that. But the 3 dimensions, the organizing dimensions that we have there, are space, the spatial dimensions, the horizontal, all that has related to it only needs these horizontal spaces as a foundation, not to realize all what is in the three dimensions in space. I will come to that later. But the foundation is in the horizontal plane. The foundation of the time dimensions, or the directing of time, will be in the vertical dimension in this scheme. And the context maker dimensions, I'm still not sure how what to name it, because this is going to connect the dots in space and time. It's the context making dimension is the vertical one, and they all start from the same point. So there we have the 3 leading directions, the leading directions of dimensions. And now we come to the extra complexity to it. So what do we have? We have the 3 horizontals, of which only one matters for our starting point, and that's the pinpointing of space, the space localization of the placement on a horizontal plane, where we will define what is here. And being able to place it also means being able to understand it. So we also use a logic. This logic is our logic of language, of course. This is a theory about language, not about mathematics, but it can be used in mathematics as well. I will come to that later. From the here moment, you have then the vertical projection, let's say, to the now moment. So then we have the timing, but there are also 3 sorts of timings, 3 ways to handle with time, just like there are 3 ways to handle with space and placements and placement. I'll come to that later. The last one is then the orientation in time and space. This is the intersection moment, and that's why we will need. There will have the correct placement of what is having an interaction in time and space, that we will need for understanding how language builds up with letters and letter combinations and words. So there are 3 steering dimensions. The first dimension, placement, is that of the placements in space. That's what we have there. The second dimension that is added is the timing, and the third dimension added to make our orientation is then, let's say, it's the logos, or the orientation of our language, of the logic, what makes logic. And this logic is also based upon something that is in nature, how we have a nature to orientate ourselves and make an order in time and space. That's also something, I'll talk about that at some other time. But we have then always every object of focus, we try to have to pinpoint that thanks to these three placements of placement in space, in time, and in this interactive time and space orientation. What is then what are the other options then? So if the placement in space is not here immediately in our logic, in our point, in our steady point of reference, it means it's also elsewhere. But if it's elsewhere, it also has a different rhythm, a different logic. It's as if we say, I have an opinion and I have a starting point to start from, to think from there and start to build up my logic. Someone else has another starting point elsewhere. And to understand that, we also need different time references. We also need a different rhythm maybe. It's elsewhere, so behind that there is a connection with a different time frame, with a different. It's also at a different place as well. That's of course obvious as well. But what is necessary there, that there is an access point to the time frame. I have explained those things before, but just hear me out first. Or we have a third starting point, which is actually a more general starting point. It's very far away, and it's I will associate it here in this placement as everywhere. So there are starting points that can have a reference to everywhere. But of course, these 2 points that are elsewhere, both of them are elsewhere, are dependent in time and are dependent in context. And that's what we're going to go towards, is that when we find references with letters as well, of letters that are about something that is elsewhere, it also will give you a background of an association in your logic, that we have to deal with it, that maybe it will have a different rhythm, maybe it is in a different time frame. At that point, it's just elsewhere. It's in space elsewhere, but it also follows a different foundation. So at this point, it's not clear. It will not be clear yet why there are these extra dimensions needed, but I will come to that. The second region is about time. That I say, I will find the time moment. For me, it is in the now. It will start from here, and I will have this vertical association towards the now. And now it will be more clear if they are these points, for instance, at different timings, time moments. When they are not now, it also means that they are dependent on the 3 arrows are not there at the same time. So that means we don't have the placement and timing at the same time. So the timing is off, and maybe even the context is off. If the timing is off, it means that we have to make it sometime or another. This is a different category. And if the context is off, it also means, okay, there are conditions that we need to find first before we can find the moment in time. And that is this dependency in these references of time, place, and context. Time, place, and context are the 3 regions that we need. The last section as well, the intersection, there's only one place where you have time, place, and context at the same time, and there we have the correct orientation in time and space where we can make something happen. and it will happen, and it will be, you can apply it to our daily reality. It's a new idea and we can use it. If the conditions are not met, the last category also are about the conditions that can be made for it in time, or also the elements that can reorganize itself in place. And these reorganizations is the things that happen in this last category. And this last category are also related with letters. I will go through all the positions of the letters. There are in total, how many positions are there? There in theory, you should have actually 9 positions in the space, 9 positions in time, and 9 positions in the context making. So the foundation are the 3 horizontal areas, in which just one is steady, and that we can use immediately. For the other ones, there are delays in time or delays in context. So there's only 3 references that can be used immediately, and we don't need this extra timing or this extra context. The context and the timing are there. We can use these 3 points immediately. And there's a geometrical association there. We have the horizontal, the vertical, and the diagonal movements, as if we have here a wave, let's say. And the A is, like I said in the previous video, the A is the moment where, just like in an echolocalization, where you find out, okay, I have a place where there is something. I found the place, foundation. With a T, you find also the placement until where you have it. So it's just not just an area in which it exists. With this area is also, there's also a certain height, and you say, okay, it's up until here. This is more or less the size of it, and that's also, now I know the point where I can use it, what I can use, and I have also already a second extra dimension in this one-dimensional space foundation. So this is the second dimension, and the third dimension is the borders. The K actually says this is the border. Until there I can use my logic. I only have just one wave, starting point, a middle, and an ending, let's say. Until here I can work with it. So that's the foundation of these 3 letters. It's one logic, one time, one space, one context, my context. The placements in space, in place, are not just about places themselves. We are talking about language, and so we are talking about pinpointing places and spaces and objects and so on to start from. These are our starting points, also from a certain logic that we're going to use. If the places that we pinpoint are a bit off, a bit further away, it also means they are not just elsewhere, just only in space. They are also, they are not having the same stable starting point in my idea of my timing, my logic. It's dependent on my timing, how to give an order to things in space and time, in places that are elsewhere, in people that are somewhere else and have also their starting points. These starting points will be off from my starting point. The U, for instance, in Dutch, U is written like that. It means also you, like in English. You is a different starting point. It's your starting point. It's somewhere else. It has a different order of logic. But we try to have In the communication, we try to find a common, in language, we try to have a common understanding, to try to understand each other, try to have more or less the same rhythm. So we try that, but it will be off anyhow. So it will not follow the same logic and order exactly like our starting point, A, T, and K. So U, L, and B will be off in that way. And what will be off? Basics are actually the timing. The timings are different, and that's how the order will be different. So there are not just spatial positions, but they're also following a different order or different process. That's what is behind it. And the green part about timing is also always about processes that are processed in time. ATK are just starting points. That's very physical, very basic, very much in space itself. ULB are related with time, but are still also elements that are having a foundation in space, but they have in the background something slightly off in a timing and in a process. That's how we understand U, L, and B, with horizontal, vertical, and diagonal. Last category, there are, in fact, U, L, and B are somewhat in the middle, and then very far away are C, M, and X, and they are at the context level, so the third level as well. So this is the third region of understanding of the making context and so on, but it's still in space. We have orientations very far away in space, but we try to have more to try to find orientation in this full space, and everything what happens in there, in the timings, in the processes, everything, and in the context it has. We try to focus mainly on keeping the context together, and it is our context, because we start from space. It's our context with the C, context. It's the M, that's the growing part in the middle. That's what is growing, that's what we take out, that's what is growing in time as well, not focused on time but from space. And that is the until where can we reach with what is growing. Mama is constantly trying to figure out how far can I interact and so on from my position. It is in the growing part, in the second part, it is in the timing part, it is busy with that kind of associations. The X is at that's where the differences, the borders of the differences are there. We are at the range of what we can still handle within one space, within our timings, within our context. This is as far as we can go. These were the first 9 letters. So this is also how we have something of the reality that has a starting point of ourselves and of our logic and of in space. And you can also say A, T, and K are about placements, stable placements which are close by without our understanding. The other U, L, and B are already forming and changing, are a little bit dependent, and the rest. And the rest of the last 3 are at the edge of our personal control as well, because they are in the general background, and so they can be understood mainly by context. We try to see the context and follow the context in space. That are the first 9 letters. Of course, we have also the verticals and the diagonals, so we will have them as well, and I will explain them as well. But first we go to the time frame now. So the time frame, it's about the time moment. It's all about timing, and and so on. If everything is at the same time, we have not just we find its place, we find its time, and we find its context If not, there will be a distance in place, and there will be also, the context will be delayed. But first, let's go to the ideal first moment. So we start from placement. We go to timing. So here's the timing where everything is matched. That's the timing moment, and this timing moment starts, of course, with the first 3 letters. And also there we can have a wave to have the 3 levels. Always 3 everywhere. 3 is our orientation, starting point, highlight, and understanding, and the edge of the limit of our understanding, and where we no longer can continue in the same way. So we have D, N, and Y, where the D is also, it's the first, you have 3 categories. You have also category of placement, you have also category of timing, and you also have a category of context, but they're based in time. So here we have D is a placement in time. So it also means I can use my placement only by depending on a timing process. I can use the growth process when I know the correct timing for it. I can use a certain goal, a certain context where some things are going, also when I know the timing. So here the first category is dependent on timing. Second category, the next 3 letters are within timing, are matching with the timing on the 2nd degree. First degree placement, 2nd degree timing, 3rd degree context. Here now we go to the 2nd degree, which is timing in timing. And so in the middle with we have the place, we have the placement with timing. So it also means we have a starting point to where you can grow something out, and you see, okay, it has grown simply because it had the time. That's one of the associations you can have. Or the O is you have also the growth process, and you have it timed, so you know when exactly something can change, will change, and so on. These are all the timings are getting an order there. And the W, for instance, is where is in the extensions and the edge. It's also about the growing process, and you follow the end of a growing process. Let's say it's the timed extensions are there. And the last ones, they are, of course, more general, contextual. So you start with a contextual idea in time, that you say, okay, here I can go along with it for a while. That's the kind of association that you can have. You can have a process of progress from here and continue generously from there. Or it is a growing process at the end. That's at the edges where you only have generalization process, where you say, okay, I see some growth going every direction, and it is involved in the timing process, but it's also having its own context. I can follow it by seeing the context. I have a few, I don't know if I have an example with F, but it is often a direction that you can understand simply because you see it in the context, and you see it also in the context where it has its own process. It's a generalized process of growth, while P is at the end, the results at the end. It's very quickly, I can go deeper into it, but I'll just go to the principles. So, and the last one is a contextual connection. So there are when all the contexts are becoming becoming clear, except, of course, there are three directions of diagonal. So when they all come together, the context is there. You can find also context in space. You can find context in timing, and you have its own you can even add an extra context. If not, these are the two other arrows, it still needs timing, or it still needs placement, or so on, or there's some distance from it. Let's go to the examples. So here we have the context. If it's not there yet, so that's how the other letters will be on the other diagonal. They will still depend on the placement. So when it's not placed at the right place, the context will not be clear. For instance, with V, we say it's you have it when it's something is I have a Dutch word in my mind. When you have when it's I should have an English example where you first should know where it belongs, at what place it belongs, and then you only can have context. So you have to look for the placement. Like the other, you have to look for the timing, and then it will become clear how it hangs together, how the context is. So you have a dependency of your attention to timing or placement. That are the other diagonal context makers. So the first context makers are the Q, V, and G, where they are about placements, but there are placements that are very dependent how you place the things, like I said. So if you don't do that well, okay, the context will not be very good. Just remind you of some words with Q, V, and G, and you will know that if you don't interpret it well, you don't find a very good placement, this will not give a very clear context. Examples are coming later. And of course we have also the other letters. If you find all the context together and you can have a new idea, it's the E, of course. This new idea can be replaced everywhere, and the end effect will be the S. It will create its own context. If it creates, or if it has some delay in time and it is forming itself, you have this R there, and when it allows some extra context in time, you have the H. I have one example. I always remember it when there was some studies about. I did some religious studies as well, comparable religion, and I always remember it that the H in the Hebrew was used at points where someone was important, like Abraham or whatever. When the H was there, the consciousness was there, and the timing was right, and so it had found its own context in time. It prepared itself, and it receives space, actually. I mean space, then in all the sense of the word, it receives a space for it, that it can participate in the time process and be meaningful. That's where the H comes in. Examples, of course, there's not enough time to have more examples. But I hope you already had an introduction how dimensions cooperate in letters and the orientations on letters. I know it is a complex matter. I can also explain it differently, but this was already an introduction. I think that gave you an idea how the orientations of letters are about something that is complete in time and space and context, or still has to find a context, or still have to find a time. And all these variations of these things, there are the different orientations of letters. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed. There's a short URL there with previous recorded videos, and you can subscribe to the YouTube channel if you like this video and want to have new ones and want to be notified when there are new ones. Thanks again. Bye-bye.